Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, GCU students, alumni, and fellow educators. Welcome to episode 30 of the Designing with Love podcast. In this episode, I will cover the 9 events of instruction and how to apply the model when designing a course. Before I provide some information about the 9 events of instruction, I would like to take a few minutes to give you a brief biography about Robert Gagne, who developed the model. Robert Gagne was a pioneering educational psychologist who is best known for his work in instructional design and learning theory. He is most famous for developing the 9 events of instruction, which is a systematic framework that outlines the essential steps for effective teaching and learning. Gagne believed that learning is a structured process, and that instructional design should be grounded in how humans acquire and organize knowledge. Early in his career, Gagne worked on military training programs during World War II, which strongly influenced his practical, step-by-step approach to instruction. Later, his academic work blended behaviorist principles with emerging cognitive theories, making his models highly adaptable across educational, military, and corporate training settings. One of his major contributions to instructional design was the idea that different types of learning, such as problem solving, require different instructional strategies. His book, titled Conditions of Learning, published in 1965, became a foundational text in the instructional design field. Gagne's systematic approach paved the way for the development of many modern instructional models and helped establish instructional design as a distinct profession. All right, so now that you know more information about Robert Gagne and his contributions to the instructional design field, I will provide a brief overview of the 9 events of instruction. Event number 1, gaining attention. This event involves capturing the learner's interest with a stimulus like a question, story, or surprising fact. Event number 2, informing learners of the objectives. This event encompasses telling learners about the objectives and what they will be learning. Event number 3, stimulating recall of prior learning. This event involves helping learners connect new information with what they already know. Event number 4, presenting the content. This event encompasses delivering the material clearly and effectively through activities such as lectures, demonstrations, and readings. Event number 5, providing learning guidance. This event involves offering strategies, examples, tips, or cues to help learners understand and organize the content. Event number 6, eliciting performance. This event encompasses giving learners a chance to apply what they have learned through practice activities. Event number 7, providing feedback. This event involves offering specific corrective feedback to reinforce learning or guide improvement. Event number 8, assessing performance. This step encompasses testing learners to ensure they have achieved the learning objectives. And finally, event number 9, enhancing retention and transfer. This event involves helping learners apply knowledge to new situations through additional practice, discussions, or real-world applications. All right, so now that you have a good understanding of each of the 9 events, I will take some time to dive deeper into each event by providing a brief explanation of why it is important and give a practical example of how it can be carried out with learners. Event number 1, gaining attention. Why is this important? Without attention, learners won't absorb new information. You need to engage their brains from the start. A practical example of this is to start with a surprising statistic, such as, did you know that 70% of learning is forgotten within 24 hours without review? Event number 2, informing learners of the objectives. Why is this important? Knowing the goal helps learners focus and feel motivated because they understand the purpose. A practical example of this is to say something like, by the end of this session, you'll be able to design a basic online course outline using Gagne's model. Event number 3, stimulating recall of prior learning. Why is this important? Activating existing knowledge helps learners connect old and new information, making learning easier and stronger. A practical example of this is you can say something like, think back to a time when you learned a new skill. What helped you succeed? Event number 4, presenting the content. Why is this important? Clear, organized information delivery ensures learners actually grasp the material. A practical example of this is to show a structured slide deck explaining each of the 9 events, one by one, with short explanations. Event number 5, providing learning guidance. Why is this important? Guidance supports learning and making sense of new concepts, preventing confusion and frustration. A practical example of this is to give some tips, such as when writing objectives, always use action verbs like describe or demonstrate. Event number 6, eliciting performance. Why is this important? Practice is how learning is reinforced. It moves information from short-term to long-term memory. Think about how this connects to cognitive load theory. A practical example of this is to have learners draft a mini lesson plan, applying the 9 events to a real-world topic. Event number 7, providing feedback. Why is this important? Feedback corrects errors, reinforces good practice, and builds learner confidence. A practical example of this is to review a learner's mini lesson plan and suggest something like, you captured attention well, but be clearer about your objectives. Event number 8, assessing performance. Why is this important? Assessment shows whether the learner has achieved the intended outcomes, allowing adjustments if necessary. A practical example of this is to give a quick quiz or a checklist, such as name and describe 3 of the 9 events of instruction. And finally, event number 9, enhancing retention and transfer. Why is this important? Learners need to apply knowledge in different contexts to make it stick and be useful beyond the class or training session. A practical example of this is to ask learners to brainstorm how they could apply the 9 events when training new employees at work. Great. So now that you have a solid framework for why the 9 events are important, I will take a few minutes to provide a brief step-by-step guide on how to use the events in course design, some tips for effective implementation, along with a few common pitfalls to avoid. Step 1, define the learning objectives. Before you design anything, clearly state what you want learners to know or be able to do by the end of the course. Step 2, plan to gain attention. Decide how you will immediately capture learners' interest at the start, such as a story, shocking fact, question, image, or a short video. Step 3, inform learners of the objectives. Right after grabbing the learner's attention, share the learning goals clearly so learners know the purpose of the course or lesson. Step 4, stimulate recall of prior learning. Design an opening activity that prompts learners to think about related knowledge, such as a short quiz, discussion, or reflection. Step 5, present the new content. Organize the material into manageable sections. Use a variety of methods such as presentations, readings, videos, or demonstrations. Step 6, provide learning guidance. Add tools to help the learners like examples, templates, frameworks, or quick tips. Step 7, design practice activities. Create exercises where learners can apply new knowledge, such as quizzes, role plays, simulations, or simple tasks. Step 8, plan feedback opportunities. Include chances to give immediate, meaningful feedback, like automatic quiz feedback, instructor comments, or peer reviews. Step 9, assess performance. Create formal assessments such as tests, projects, and presentations to check whether learners met the objectives. And finally, step 10, enhance retention and transfer. Wrap up with some activities that encourage real-world application, like case studies, action plans, group discussions, or job aids. And I wanted to also provide a bonus tip for you. You don't have to stick to the sequence I just outlined, but using all 9 events ensures a complete learner-centered experience. All right, so here's 5 tips you can utilize for effective implementation of the 9 events of instruction. Ideas for these tips were pulled from ChatGPT. Tip number 1, blend multiple events naturally. You don't always need a hard stop between events. Sometimes you can combine them. For example, while gaining attention, you can also stimulate recall. Tip number 2, keep objectives learner-friendly. Write objectives in simple, action-oriented language that sounds motivating, not overly formal. Tip number 3, use active, not passive practice. Design practice activities that mirror real tasks learners will do outside the course or training session. Tip number 4, provide feedback quickly and specifically. Make feedback immediate and clear, focusing both on what was done well and what can improve. And finally, tip number 5, connect real-world applications early and often. Throughout the course, remind learners how skills or knowledge will help them in real life, not just at the end. Now, I will take a few minutes to review 5 common pitfalls to avoid and how to steer clear of them. Ideas for these pitfalls were also pulled from ChatGPT. Number 1, overloading learners early on. The pitfall, dumping too much information right after gaining attention. You can avoid this by keeping the introduction light and focused, by easing learners into the topic before delivering heavy content. Number 2, stating objectives in boring formal language. The pitfall, listing objectives like a legal document, such as learners will be able to identify. Avoid it by making objectives personal and exciting when possible. 3, skipping the recall step. The pitfall, assuming learners remember everything they've ever learned and jumping straight into new material. Avoid it by building in a quick warm-up activity or a simple question to activate prior knowledge. Number 4, offering vague or delayed feedback. The pitfall, waiting until the end of the module or lesson to correct misunderstandings. Avoid it by giving immediate, clear feedback during practice activities so learners can adjust right away. And finally, number 5, treating transfer as an afterthought. The pitfall, only focusing on course completion without helping learners think about how they'll use their new skills. Avoid it by including scenarios, action plans, or discussions on how to apply learning outside the course throughout the program. And also, I wanted to provide a quick pro tip. Make a plan for interaction and reflection at every stage. Even if it's just a 1-minute pause for learners to think or discuss, can make a huge difference. I hope you have found this information about the 9 events of instruction and how to use this model in a course design helpful. As a recap, we covered who Robert Gagne is, an overview of the 9 events of instruction, what each event entails, and how to apply this model to designing a course. As a bonus, I have created 2 resources for you to reference as you utilize it in your future instructional design projects. The first resource is an interactive infographic, and the second resource is a cheat sheet that contains the tips and pitfalls I covered in the episode. You can access these resources in the show notes. Before I conclude this episode, I would encourage you to do some additional research on this model and see how you can utilize it in future instructional design projects. Lastly, here is an inspiring quote from Robert Gagne. Motivation is an essential condition of learning. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.